This wealthy daughter-in-law is living a miserable life. Her mother-in-law constantly berates her. Slaps are a regular occurrence. Her name is Mina, and her mother-in-law dislikes her. Her husband despises her even more. Mina, who married into a prestigious family, can only silently endure. At the dining table, simply because her mother-in-law finds her unpleasant, she steps aside, cautiously serving everyone. She doesn't even get a chance to sit at the table. Her status in the family is lower than that of a servant. Meanwhile, everyone else enjoys their privileges without restraint. Even so, her mother-in-law continues to treat her with cold disdain. Any small mistake leads to severe punishment from her mother-in-law. The goal is to crush her self-esteem. Even her sister-in-law mocks and ridicules her. Mina looks at her wardrobe full of clothes, but not a single piece is something she likes. Even when she steps out, her mother-in-law interferes with her outfits, complaining that Mina has no taste in fashion. She has no choice but to change her clothes as instructed, and this small action ends up turning her life around. At an auction, Mina sits gracefully, no longer the submissive woman she once was. She noticed someone that looks like her, she intimidated by her stunning appearance. That woman is Jo Yeon-ju, a fierce and volatile prosecutor, known for shamelessly taking bribes. She mingles with all sorts of powerful people, using her martial arts and gun skills to make gangsters and thugs tremble. When she meets higher-ups, she's quick to curry favor, living a double life. Today, she's disguised as a civilian to investigate a case, when suddenly, a criminal appears, diverting Yeon-ju's attention. Realizing the situation, the criminal flees. Yeon-ju fiercely chases him into a parking lot, but the criminal disappears. Yeon-ju looks at her reflection in a mirror and marvels at her own beauty, but before she has time to fully appreciate herself, a white car speeding at 180 mph suddenly comes crashing towards her. Severely injured, she's rushed to the hospital. At the same time, an even more tragic event unfolds. Mina's father's plane crashes, leaving Mina missing. The butler checked the surveillance footage and saw the moment Yeon-ju was hit by the car. Mistaking her for Mina, they immediately sent someone to the hospital to check. In the hospital, while Mina's relatives were dreaming of inheriting a huge fortune, they saw Yeon-ju in the hospital bed, still believing she was Mina. Their dreams of inheritance were instantly shattered. At that moment, the mother-in-law arrived and tries to take Yeon-ju from the hospital. Yeon-ju, lying in bed, glanced at her mother-in-law, who raised her hand to slap her. However, the daughter-in-law before her was no longer the same. With one swift move, Yeon-ju caught her mother-in-law's arm. The mother-in-law was shocked by the transformation, surprised that the once submissive daughter-in-law dared to fight back. It was only then that Yeon-ju realized she had become a fierce daughter-in-law. Faced with this sudden change, her mother-in-law was caught off guard. When Yeon-ju saw her handsome husband, the long-suppressed excitement of her youth began to stir again. As she embraced her new life as a wealthy daughter-in-law, hoping for the luxurious life she had always dreamed of, her husband's next words were a harsh reality check. At her family's funeral, everyone was deeply sorrowful, except Yeon-ju, who was emotionless. She scrolled through the news, only to see scandal after scandal about Mina. She wondered how someone like Mina, who was once set to inherit a vast fortune, could be living such a miserable life in her in-law's home. Yeon-ju, reflecting on her own situation, felt a thrill as she was about to inherit a massive fortune and live the life of a wealthy daughter-in-law. However, reality hit her hard again. The butler handed her the daily schedule, which contained no glamorous outings, no shopping, no golf, only endless household chores. At 4 a.m. the next morning, the butler and Mina dragged her out of bed to make dumplings and prepare breakfast for her mother-in-law. Yeon-ju stood at the entrance, shocked by the drastic turn her life had taken. She silently blamed herself for her mistakes and could only vent her frustrations on the dough. The next day, her mother-in-law, trying to save face and show off, boasted that if it weren't for her son's kindness, this woman wouldn't have been allowed into the family at all. Yeon-ju was disgusted by her attitude, and even the servants couldn't bear it. As they gossiped in Vietnamese, they revealed to Yeon-ju that the previous daughter-in-law, Mina, had been treated even worse. Mina had to handle all the housework while enduring verbal and physical abuse from her in-laws. Even when her mother-in-law slapped her in front of everyone, no one spoke up for her. Instead, they mocked her. Learning about Mina's suffering, Yeon-ju realized how to deal with her in-laws. Later, the family gathered to discuss how to handle their now rebellious daughter-in-law. The cruel and scheming mother-in-law planned to arrange an accident to get rid of her and claim Mina's fortune. Standing outside, Yeon-ju overheard everything. She clenched her fists, deciding it was time to show this family who they were dealing with. The next day, when faced with her mother-in-law's harsh words, Yeon-ju chose to stand her ground and fight back. Her in-laws were in complete disbelief, and her mother-in-law was so furious she stomped her feet in rage. At a family gathering, while the priest was giving a speech, the young master of the family began shamelessly throwing snacks at her head. She tolerated it the first time, but when he pushed his luck further, the prosecutor in Yeon-ju snapped, and her emotions exploded and shattered everything, leaving one with her attitude. After returning home, her mother-in-law and sister-in-law scolded her for causing a scene. To secure her inheritance, Yan-ju swallowed her pride and apologized, playing the submissive daughter-in-law once again. Her sudden change in attitude surprised everyone. Later, when Yan-ju returned to her room, she noticed something strange about a pair of high heels in the corner. None of the shoes in the house fit her properly. Though she didn't understand why at first, her instincts as a seasoned prosecutor made her suspect that something significant had changed. The next morning, the Mina family announced a shareholders' meeting. Led by the ruthless hack Tai, told her she must stay home, forbidding her from attending. But Yan-ju wasn't about to accept such treatment. She was mocked and ridiculed by others, but she refused to let people control his fate. She decided to rely on his own strength to fight for the inheritance of her family's company. Yan-ju drove her luxury car straight to the company, but as soon as he arrived at the parking garage, a group of thugs surrounded him. These were the same thugs he had taught a lesson to before, but with her memory loss, Yan-ju didn't recognize them. She tried to walk away but was grabbed. In that moment, her instincts as a former prosecutor kicked in. With a swift and elegant move, she flipped a 300-pound man to the ground effortlessly. Using her martial arts skills, she fought off the gang of thugs, defeating them in a fierce battle. As the dust settled, the fight came to an end, but she had missed the shareholders' meeting. When she received a congratulatory call from her husband, she couldn't feel happy. 30 minutes earlier at the meeting, her aunt and his mother-in-law's eldest daughter had conspired to steal her inheritance. Just when it seemed all was lost, a mysterious figure appeared, holding control of the majority of the company and pledging full support for Zhou Yanju's claim to the Mina family's business. That person was none other than Sung Wook, son of Chairman Han's late brother. At this moment, Zhou Yanju feared that her true identity as a fake would be exposed. She decided to continue playing the role of the submissive daughter-in-law so she could maintain her luxurious lifestyle. As soon as she walked through the door, her mother-in-law started scolding her again. Zhou Yanju suppressed her temper and tried to endure being treated like a doormat, but in the next moment, she couldn't hold back and cursed under her breath. His mother-in-law was so angry that she nearly fainted, and even his sister-in-law wanted to say something, but a sharp glare from her made her stop. Just then, the butler called her back to the kitchen, and Zhou Yanju had no choice but to obediently return to his housework, feeling tormented. Suddenly, a phone call from his aunt saved her from the misery. Excited, she dropped everything and rushed out. From her aunt, she learned that the person who helped secure her inheritance rights was the group's powerful chairman, who had returned from abroad. This revelation shocked Zhou Yanju. Later, her uncle approached her and handed over all the public information on Kang Michigan NA and the internal records of the company's members, so Zhou Yanju could prove that the car accident hadn't affected her at all and claim her right to manage the company. This woman was relentless, fighting for 3 years to pass the bar exam and become a prosecutor. She had even undergone intense training to become a genius in her field with just a few simple steps. Step 1, she reached out to her friend to make a plan. Step 2, she meticulously reviewed all the documents. It became clear that the intensive training Zhou Yanju had undergone years ago had left an indelible mark on her. In just one night, she memorized all the information flawlessly. Even she was surprised at her incredible memory. On her first day in office, her aunt led a group of old-timers to challenge her. They either criticized her for being illegitimate and ignorant of the company's secrets or mocked her as an uneducated outsider, claiming that her leadership would bring nothing but chaos. Their real intention was to make her a powerless figurehead. These remarks awakened Zhou Yanju's fierce competitive spirit as a former prosecutor. Without hesitation, she seized the opportunity to expose all the skeletons in their closets. One by one, she revealed the ugly truths behind each of the old-timers. As Zhou Yanju transformed into the new chairwoman of the company, soon, news of her becoming the company president spread across the media. But before she could savor her success, a team of prosecutors barged in, arresting her on suspicion of drug abuse. At that moment, Zhou Yanju's head began to throb violently, and memories of the car accident and her previous work started flashing through her mind, constantly reminding her of something important. Just then, Zhou Yanju's uncle arrived at the police station. Alerting her that this was a trap set by Mina's faction. Even if she went with them, she would be safe. Zhou Yanju suddenly realized that her uncle had known all along that she was not Mina. It turned out that just the day before, her uncle had supported her despite knowing she was not Mina. He had given her all the publicly available information on Mina and the internal details of the company to prevent her identity from being exposed. Upon arriving at the police station, Zhou Yanju showed no sign of anxiety and seemed unusually relaxed, almost as if she was at home. As a longtime prosecutor, she instinctively took charge, offering guidance to the rookie prosecutors on how to interrogate suspects. This left the new prosecutors in amazement. The mastermind behind the plot was Han's eldest sister. She had been scheming for months to use drugs to control Kang Mina, planning to monopolize the company and ruin her reputation. What she didn't anticipate was that Mina was actually Zhou Yanju. Back at home, Jo Yeon-ju was greeted with an unexpected change in attitude. Despite her previous harsh demeanor, she was now praised as a reward for her efforts. Jo Yeon-ju was relieved of her household duties with the housekeeper's wife taking over, which delighted her. Reflecting on the day's events, Jo Yeon-ju realized that her skills as a prosecutor, both her legal knowledge and physical prowess, had played a significant role. Now, as the new head of the group, her status was on par with that of influential figures. This change in position led to a shift in how others treated her. The board of directors, eager to congratulate her, extended an invitation to dinner. However, their interest in collaborating with her was more about leveraging her position for their own benefit. Jo Yeon-ju quickly saw through their ulterior motives. The next morning, because the housekeeper had intentionally given her noodles containing an allergen, Jo Yeon-ju pretended to have a stomach ache. As she descended the stairs, her mother-in-law's snide remarks echoed. The Han family's eldest sister, upon learning from the housekeeper that the noodles were harmless, began to doubt Jo Yeon-ju's true identity. When Jo Yeon-ju returned home that evening, she faced her skeptical sister-in-law, who demanded she reveal the contents of her tablet. Jo Yeon-ju, struggling to maintain her cover, was visibly distressed. To avoid trouble, Jo Yeon-ju deliberately had Mina use her hand to unlock the tablet. Fortunately, Jo Yeon-ju had previously cracked the tablet's password. It turned out that after several failed attempts, her cousin was able to unlock it using Mina's birthday numbers. Inside the tablet were photos of Mina being beaten, along with records of the abuse and medical diagnosis. This allowed Jo Yeon-ju to breathe a sigh of relief, narrowly avoiding a crisis. Despite this, Jo Yeon-ju still felt uneasy. Although she had managed to get past the tablet issue, she noticed the disappointment of the family members, especially the unwillingness of the Han family's eldest daughter, and the fact that the housekeeper said the noodles didn't contain any allergens, while Mina pretended to be unwell. This made Jo Yeon-ju realize that the family was beginning to doubt her. Worried, Jo Yeon-ju sought out her friend and urged him to quickly find the real Mina. She knew her fake identity would be exposed sooner or later and didn't want to live in constant fear. Her friend's response made her feel jealous, as the real Mina was enjoying the sun and sand abroad. Unaware of all this, Jo Yeon-ju had no choice but to rely on herself. She decided to feign illness and get hospitalized. News of her acute gastroenteritis was widely reported by the media. While she was engrossed in a food channel, her troublesome stomach began to growl. To avoid suspicion, she discreetly asked the group leader for some food. Consequently, fresh noodle dishes were delivered to her. As she enjoyed her meal, she was unaware that someone had sinister intentions toward her. The Han family's eldest daughter had found the person who had previously run Jo Yeon-ju over with a car and threatened them to act against Jo Yeon-ju. After being discharged from the hospital, Jo Yeon-ju planned to show off her new car to her cousin. However, the next moment, she realized the brakes had failed, leading to a dangerous situation. On the other side, the housekeeper, who had just returned from grocery shopping, noticed the oil stains on the ground and sensed something was wrong. They immediately dispatched people to rescue the young mistress. With a team of rescuers, they finally reached the entrance of the inspection office. Thanks to some help by her cousin, the car performed a perfect 360-degree spin before crashing into a nearby dumpster, coming to a halt without serious consequences. At that moment, a young prosecutor recognized Jo Yeon-ju immediately. During their conversation, he learned that Jo Yeon-ju was indeed a prosecutor. This revelation made her very uneasy about his own identity. When she returned home and prepared to investigate who had tampered with the car, she was forcibly handed a cup by the head of the family, who used the excuse of protecting the family's reputation to have the car repaired and warned her not to meddle in matters. Feeling anxious, Jo Yeon-ju went to the garage to look for the car but found the place empty, with no security cameras installed. This made her even more suspicious of his in-laws, and she had to be very cautious. The next day, while the in-laws were having breakfast, Jo Yeon-ju stood by like a servant, watching everyone eat. Not only did they ignore her, but she was also subjected to further ridicule and insults, which made her so angry that she nearly lost her temper. As a prosecutor known for her fiery temperament, she struggled to control her rage. However, all of this was merely her imagination. Although she wished he could act on his anger, he realized that doing so might bring more danger. That evening, as she walked home alone, unaware of the approaching danger, her instincts as a prosecutor made her alert to potential threats. Suddenly, a man appeared from behind, startling her. Without any unnecessary words, the man charged at her, but Jo Yeon-ju responded with a quick defense. The man was knocked to the ground, and Jo Yeon-ju stepped forward and grabbed him by the chest. However, the man, showing no regard for fair play, retaliated with a powerful strike, knocking Jo Yeon-ju down. As Jo Yeon-ju's head throbbed painfully, images of being hit by a car resurfaced. The man, ready to finish him off, was about to strike again, but Jo Yeon-ju, with a burst of strength, managed to get up and deliver a decisive kick that knocked the man down. Despite this, the man still fought back. In a critical moment, she realized she needed help. The woman, who had been bleeding profusely, fainted. It turned out that just minutes earlier, the woman had been struck down by a brick thrown by the helmet-wearing man. Surprisingly, this misfortune turned into an advantage, as Jo Yeon-ju, while unconscious, had vivid flashbacks. When Jo Yeon-ju regained consciousness, she not only remembered her identity as prosecutor Jo Yeon-ju, but also as Kang Mi-na, the president of Human Group. At this moment, she realized that the helmet-wearing man who had attacked her was the same person who had caused her amnesia in the car accident. Meanwhile, the public prosecutor and chief prosecutor had already surrounded the area, threatening the helmet-wearing man to keep quiet. Jo Yeon-ju immediately removed the IV from her arm and decided to interrogate the man thoroughly. Arriving at the prosecutor's office, she was furious and began the interrogation. During this, he revealed that he had once been a partner of the real Mi-na and that they had plotted to sell valuable items together, with her helping Mi-na escape abroad afterward. Unfortunately, the scheming had been discovered by the head of the Han family, who used this knowledge to blackmail him, forcing him into compliance. Now, having regained her memories as a prosecutor, Jo Yeon-ju decided to continue using the identity of Mi-na to investigate her in-laws. Using her newfound authority, the two temporarily became partners. The next day, facing the provocation from the Han family's eldest sister, Jo Yeon-ju, who had regained her prosecutor's memories, took control of the situation once more. A few days ago, with her memories as a prosecutor restored, Jo Yeon-ju demanded that the fraudster reveal what was being concealed. The fraudster, who had fled home, was not only seeking benefits but also trying to avoid prosecution. Thus, she was temporarily detained in a cell. Inside, a man anxiously watched the long-haired man. At that moment, the long-haired man pulled out a powerful toothbrush and approached the man, choking him and nearly causing him to suffocate. Suddenly, the man awoke, realizing it had all been a nightmare. Despite realizing it was just a hallucination, the man was still frightened and broke into a cold sweat. He hesitated and considered using illness as an excuse to escape the danger. He asked for medication but, upon taking it, felt dizzy and immediately went to check. He then clutched his throat but was met with resistance. The man was restrained and cruelly thrown to the ground. Before he could recover, a dark figure approached, casting a shadow over him. Although the man was disoriented, he instinctively sensed the danger. Soon, the small room echoed with the sounds of struggle, and the man was found dead. The news reported the man's suicide, and a piece of information found in his pocket included the woman's name. Seeing that a key figure had died made Jo Yeon-ju extremely angry. It meant that her previous efforts had been in vain. She decided to go to a bar to unwind. She had a glass of white wine, but the more she drank, the more trouble she found herself in. The more she tried to drown her sorrows, the worse she felt. Eventually, she started to experience significant pain. Returning home, heavily drunk, she stumbled and fell, ending up asleep on the floor. Suddenly, she was woken up by a loud noise. Struggling with the effects of the alcohol, she got up and found her shoes in an unusual place. She managed to get a drink from the fridge but realized that, as the night had turned into day, she had been awake all night. She worried that her friend would be angry with her. She recalled that the previous evening, despite the alcohol, she had managed to keep her voice steady on the phone. She checked her call log and was shocked to see that she had called her friend. She vaguely remembered discussing some issues with him and was relieved she hadn't revealed her drunken state on the call. However, she knew she couldn't avoid going home. At that moment, she received a call from her husband, who asked her about what she had said to her stubborn mother the previous night. Her mother was still furious after the call. She remained silent. The news reported that the prosecution had decided to handle the case discreetly and would not make any comments for now. She sighed with relief, realizing she still had time to deal with the situation and her family. She planned to visit the prosecution office first. As she was about to leave, her friend was already at the door, offering her some drinks. The atmosphere became awkward quickly. Before she could say anything, she proactively mentioned that she didn't remember much from the previous night, only that she had gotten drunk and ended up on the floor. While they were awkwardly waiting, she received a phone call with very intense content that most people couldn't handle. The woman awkwardly left the scene, and he felt even more anxious. She learned that he had insulted someone on the phone the previous night, which made the situation even more uncomfortable. The leader forgave her, understanding that she was in a bad mood, and instructed her to return to the city and resolve the issues within 3 days. She was also advised to investigate the true identity of the person involved. That evening, she returned home cautiously, reflecting on the events of the previous night. Just as she was about to sneak back to his room, she found her mother-in-law already in the living room. Seeing her mother-in-law's smile triggered a sudden memory of the previous night. She realized she was in trouble and didn't want her mother-in-law to know about her actions. Without waiting for her mother-in-law to finish speaking, she hurriedly went to her room. The next day, when she saw the laid-off hotel employees protesting at the entrance, holding banners to denounce Jo Yeon-ju, she quietly put on her scarf and sunglasses, preparing to sneak into the office while the protesters were gathered. The protesters, however, were not to be underestimated. They had already prepared for this, and the appearance of Jo Yanju was something they had seen before. They quickly recognized her among the crowd. Seeing the hostile crowd and hearing their loud voices, she planned to escape with the nearby team leader. Suddenly, someone from the crowd threw eggs at the team leader. The team leader appeared to be about to be hit by the flying eggs, but Jo Yanju quickly stepped in and smashed the eggs with her hand. The team leader gave her a thumbs up, ready to praise her, when another egg fell from the sky and hit her on the head. Then another, and more eggs kept hitting her. The husband, upon hearing about this, called the police and turned into a furious rage, threatening that the person responsible would end up in jail for life, never seeing even a small bird's egg again. His mother and sister were puzzled by his reaction. His mother remarked that he seemed to be taking his wife's side now, especially since he was so angry about the eggs being thrown at her. The sister also thought her brother was overly protective. Trying to hide his emotions, he quickly fled the scene. His mother was shocked by his overreaction and suspected that a child might soon be on the way. After Jo Yanju finished her shower, she learned from the team leader that the person who threw the eggs had already been reported to his husband. Just as she was wondering about the sudden change in his husband's temperament, she received a call. The prosecutor's office received an invitation from the police, requesting her to personally handle the matter. The woman was also curious about why the Han family's group was causing trouble at Mina's company. Upon returning to the prosecutor's office, Jo Yanju learned the full story from the older man. She finally realized that it was the eldest sister of the Han family behind all the scheming. Seeing the pitiful state of the man in front of her, she promised to help them resolve the issue of their layoffs. Later, she sought help from her older friend, but he explained that the company was in a deficit and the group had no choice but to cut off the loss to survive. Hearing how heartless he was, she angrily walked away. Seeing her anger, her friend had no choice but to step in and solve the matter. He offered 10% of the company's shares and a deal to exchange the hotel merger. The condition was to stop investigating MI9. Jo Yanju soon learned that it was her older friend who transferred the shares to protect the employees. She didn't expect that because of just one word from her, he would give up so much. In a panic, she hurried to find him, asking why he was so foolish. When she saw him again, all the memories of getting drunk the night before suddenly came rushing back to her. She didn't just kiss her older friend, she also told him that she had slowly fallen in love with him. As he looked at her lying on the sofa, her friend mumbled about how he once said encouraging words to a girl. After he left, she suddenly woke up, as if she had heard something important, and it was something she had heard 14 years ago. Back then, she and her friend had met in a hospital, and he had said the same words to her, giving her the courage to face life again. She also had the habit of biting straws. At that moment, Jo Yanju asked him if that person back then was him. Her friend suddenly realized that the person he saw in the hospital all those years ago wasn't Mina, but the prosecutor standing in front of him. For all these years, he had been mistaken. The person he had loved all along was her. After hiding their feelings for so long, they both rediscovered their first love. Just like 14 years ago, they held each other's hands again, and with deep affection, embraced and confessed their love. As for the shameless man, after his wife inherited a fortune from her family, he abandoned his mistress. The two of them were indeed very shameless. Just days ago, the man had been caught cheating with his mistress right in front of his wife, who was left outraged. The woman, who was obsessed with marrying into a wealthy family, was furious after being abandoned. A few days later, rumors spread online claiming that Jo Yanju from Mina Group was a fraud, and that her goal was to seize the Jiang family's fortune. Upon learning this, the Han family's elder sister sought her out. They shared a common goal and decided to join forces against Jo Yanju. The elder sister's subordinate, carrying a photo of Jo Yanju, went to a triad organization to inquire about anyone matching the description who had recently fled abroad by water. At that moment, one of the subordinates suddenly remembered that the person in the photo had previously been involved in a fight at a nightclub with them. Using the clues provided by the gangsters, the subordinate found the prosecutor's assistant. Before continuing the investigation, he reported the situation to his boss. The Han family's elder sister, furious, berated the subordinate for his nonsense, stating that the usually gentle and weak Mina could not possibly be powerful. She demanded that he return immediately or risk losing his job. Just as his car left, Jo Yanju and the team leader arrived. The eldest sister of the Han family, unwilling to give up, went directly to Mina's aunt and told her about Mina's fake identity, proposing to publicly conduct a paternity test for a final blow. The chief prosecutor, looking at Mina's photo, gradually fell into deep thought. He recalled a junior mentioning seeing a prosecutor in a store with a name tag on her body. At the same time, he distinctly remembered Jo Yanju saying she was fishing when she accidentally fell into the water, lost her memory, and disappeared for a while. Sensing something was off, he realized Jo Yanju might be hiding something from him. Meanwhile, Jo Yanju was discussing strategies with her subordinate to deal with the unfavorable rumors circulating about her. She stated that as long as they found evidence of collusion between the chief prosecutor and the Han group, she would leave that family as soon as possible. Until then, she had to continue undercover. When she returned home, Jo Yeon-ju sought to quickly obtain evidence of her father-in-law's collusion with the chief prosecutor. She tried to subtly get him to reveal something. On one hand, she expressed gratitude to him for helping her avoid being summoned. On the other, she mentioned a fraudster with a list of people Mina had bribed, who had suddenly died after the list was exposed. She couldn't help but remark on her father-in-law's extensive connections in the prosecutor's office. Her comments made her father-in-law visibly uneasy. As they were talking, the eldest sister of the Han family quietly sneaked into Jo Yeon-ju's room. Just as she was about to take a comb to perform the paternity test, Jo Yeon-ju suddenly appeared behind her and questioned her motives for being in her room when the master was not around. The husband also witnessed the scene and reminded his sister. He told her that regardless of Jo Yeon-ju's true identity, he had no interest in her age or background. He only wanted to maintain order. At this moment, Jo Yeon-ju realized that she could no longer stay in the house and needed to quickly find a way to escape. The scene then shifts to Han's older sister, who received news that the person who had been ordered to run over Mina had regained consciousness in the hospital. She instructed her subordinates to deal with the situation immediately. Upon hearing this news, Jo Yeon-ju visited the hospital to find out why Mina was run over that day and whether someone had instructed the attacker. Additionally, Jo Yeon-ju's friend discovered from his call records that he had been in contact with Han Group. The man claimed he was in financial trouble and had gone to the hotel to borrow money from a colleague. He had accidentally hit Mina while waiting in the parking lot due to a sudden outburst. Jo Yeon-ju was momentarily at a loss for words upon hearing this. Later, the old friend informed her that the man was lying. He had previously investigated the brake marks at the hotel and concluded that hitting her would have required steering the wheel, making it impossible for the incident to be accidental. After they left, the man immediately called someone from Hanju Group, requesting a meeting. Meanwhile, the prosecutor was also impersonating Jo Yeon-ju, dispatching people to investigate her every move. He had actually discovered long ago that Jo Yeon-ju and Mina looked exactly the same. Now he was uncertain about who was impersonating whom. While he was contemplating this, Jo Yeon-ju suddenly barged into his office. The prosecutor's expression at this moment was like the third one in your emoji pack. After Jo Yeon-ju left, the prosecutor was convinced that such impolite and sudden behavior indicated that Jo Yeon-ju was pretending to be Kang Mina. At the hospital, Han family's sister sent her men to eliminate witnesses and silence them. Jo Yeon-ju's friend arrived just in time, saving the driver from harm. Jo Yeon-ju's friend chased the assailant, but the assailant was too skilled. By the time he reached the hospital, the assailant had vanished, narrowly escaping several times. Eventually, he confessed that it was due to Hanju's influence and the substantial bribe he received. After the car accident, Hanju's group used innocent recordings to falsely accuse someone. They also revealed that Hanju's group had done this sort of thing before, such as with the factory fire, where they had been paid to fabricate evidence. This woman is incredibly ruthless. To seize her family's assets, she even targeted her own brother. She directly told him that he no longer needed to attend the board meetings because soon he would be arrested by the police as a drug user. She informed him that previously, when he asked for the key, she had tampered with it. Now, just by testing his hair, they would be able to detect drug traces. Once he is arrested, she plans to replace all his positions with her own people and then continue to tarnish his reputation, completely undermining his authority in the company. Meanwhile, that night, she secretly planted a listening device in Jo Yeon-ju's room and overheard all their conversations, learning that Jo Yeon-ju was an imposter. During that visit, she also took a strand of Jo Yeon-ju's hair. A press conference will be held to reveal the paternity test results. If the brother wants to stay alive, he must obediently comply and disclose everything about Jo Yeon-ju. Feeling helpless, the younger brother mentioned that not long ago, he found a medicine bag with Jo Yeon-ju's name on Mina's clothes. Upon hearing this, Han family's sister devised a plan and sent her subordinates to investigate Jo Yeon-ju's background. Meanwhile, the prosecutor also uncovered Jo Yeon-ju's real identity. He had investigated Jo Yeon-ju's entire family background and discovered that she was the daughter of the firefighter from Hanju's factory. While they were investigating the case, they were unaware that Han family's eldest sister had already teamed up with Jo Yeon-ju's aunt to publicly expose Jo Yeon-ju's fake identity at the shareholders' meeting. They planned for Jo Yeon-ju's aunt to reveal the paternity test results on the spot. At the shareholders' meeting, when the aunt presented Jo Yeon-ju's paternity test report, Jo Yeon-ju, who was sitting uneasily, was deeply troubled by the unfolding situation. The result was undoubtedly shocking to Jo Yeon-ju herself. As the result became positive, shocking everyone, she then announced her resignation as the chairman and transferred the shares to the shareholders' meeting, which was essentially a major party. As for the paternity test report, Jo Yeon-ju was unaware of the details. After calmly leaving the meeting room, she immediately asked her team what had happened. The team leader was also confused, feeling it was a stroke of luck. Han family's eldest sister, on the other hand, was very distressed by the outcome. She wondered if her aunt had manipulated the results and accused her of deliberately embarrassing Jo Yeon-ju in public. The eldest sister was extremely frustrated and chose not to explain further, leaving suddenly. Back in her office, she was furious, throwing things around and realizing that her supposed victory was just a joke. The Luo family was also shocked when they saw the news. The next day, Jo Yeon-ju's subordinate revealed to Han family's eldest sister that during his previous investigation of Jo Yeon-ju, he recalled that a gang member had mentioned a highly skilled prosecutor named Jo Yeon-ju. She then reviewed Jo Yeon-ju's file and the surveillance video from the auction site. She was stunned to see that prosecutor Jo Yeon-ju looked exactly like Min-ai, so the impersonator Min-ai must be Jo Yeon-ju. But where had the real Min-ai gone? She decided to visit the prosecutor's office to find out more. Meeting with the prosecutor, Han family's eldest sister was clear about her intentions. She wanted to pull the prosecutor to her side from her father's camp, and also have the prosecutor reveal any incriminating evidence against her father to ensure his arrest. She planned to arrange for the prosecutor to be an external board member of her company. The prosecutor responded, clearly implying that she was unaware of what evidence he had against her father. The prosecutor revealed that it was about her. 14 years ago, Han family's eldest sister had been involved in a car accident on the way to the company, which resulted in someone being killed. Jo Yeon-ju, who was hidden in the back, seemed to have realized something. Han family's eldest sister said that there was no evidence left at the time, but the prosecutor revealed that he had kept a record. This was when Han family's eldest sister realized that the prosecutor had evidence against her. She coldly remarked that it was just about hitting an old person with a car. Who would care? Hearing this, Jo Yeon-ju was instantly moved to tears. She finally understood that the person who had caused the accident 14 years ago and made her father go to jail was Han family's eldest sister. Hearing her speak so casually about the incident, she silently vowed that she would pay the price. When Jo Yeon-ju tried to tell her friend about this, he showed no surprise. It turned out that he had already learned the truth. It was revealed that Han family's eldest sister had conspired with the prosecutor to imprison her father on charges of embezzlement and tax evasion. Jo Yeon-ju was pleased to see them in trouble because she held evidence of Han family's eldest sister's past crimes. This evidence was something Jo Yeon-ju found in the prosecutor's office, documenting how Han family's eldest sister had disguised the accidental death of her friend's father as a fire incident. Seeing the footage, her friend's eyes filled with tears. The next day, when Jo Yeon-ju arrived at work, she learned that she had been suspended for 2 months. The prosecutor informed her that someone had reported her. As a prosecutor, she was accused of impersonating Min-ai and committing embezzlement and corruption. The accuser was Min-ai's aunt. Despite Jo Yeon-ju's attempts to explain, the prosecutor stated that as a prosecutor, she couldn't stand against the powerful family. Upon hearing this, Jo Yeon-ju realized that the prosecutor and Han family's eldest sister were colluding. Feeling helpless, she mocked them briefly before leaving. While the prosecutor was feeling smug, he suddenly noticed something odd about his clock. Opening it, he found that the hard drive containing crucial information from Han family's group was missing. This hard drive was an important bargaining chip in his negotiations with Han family. The prosecutor checked the surveillance footage and saw that Jo Yeon-ju had been in the office when he and Han family's eldest sister had entered. He realized that Jo Yeon-ju must have taken the hard drive. Meanwhile, Han family's eldest sister informed her subordinate that if the prosecutor revealed the contents of the hard drive, they would be in trouble. It was time for the subordinate to make a decision. Soon, the subordinate confessed to taking the blame for the accidental death of her Jo Yeon-ju friend's father and disguising it as a fire. He had set the fire himself, destroying all evidence. In the chaos, he accidentally hit Jo Yeon-ju's grandmother with his car. Everything had been cleaned up by him, and now the media was reporting that the Jo Yeon-ju friend and the prosecutor had conspired in Min-ai's disappearance case. To compete for the Kang family's assets, Jo Yeon-ju, now in a passive position, could only stay at home. Relaxing and watching TV, she soon realized she couldn't just wait around and needed to find a way to investigate. So, she and Han Woon take out and disguised themselves as delivery people to sneak out under the media's nose. They pondered what Min-ai would do in their situation. Jo Yeon-ju assumed that Min-ai, in order to escape from her in-laws, had not only collected incriminating evidence against them, but also collaborated with scammers to sell fake information before fleeing abroad. A woman with such boldness, who had even inherited her family's fortune, was now absent. This puzzled Jo Yeon-ju. It is revealed, real Mina changed her appearance and went to work as the eldest sister's secretary with the intent of gathering evidence of her crimes to bring justice to her abusive in-laws without her knowing. Previously, it was she who had secretly tampered with Jo Yeon-ju's stage report. She thought she had executed everything flawlessly, but the cunning Han family's eldest sister still sensed something was wrong. During her first visit to the house, she was strangely familiar with everything, as if she had lived there for a long time. Moreover, she purposely concealed the scars on her arm. Connecting the dots, the eldest sister became suspicious and tested her by asking her to eat peanuts. knowing that the real Mina was allergic to nuts. If she ate them without issue, she would let it go. To everyone's surprise, she did eat them, even though she tried to conceal her reaction. However, the eldest sister had already performed a DNA test with a strand of her hair, and the truth was now out in the open. As she attempted to flee, a gang of thugs was waiting outside, anticipating her move. Just as she was at a loss for what to do, her friend arrived in time to rescue her. When she reached the underground parking lot, Jo Yeon-ju also arrived. They had already deduced her true identity, which allowed them to arrive just in time to save the real Mina. Jo Yeon-ju was preparing to go support her friend when the thugs appeared in the parking lot. Without a word, the hot-tempered prosecutor started fighting. At that moment, Mina was struck on the head by one of the thugs and collapsed, unconscious. As the situation seemed to be turning in their favor, the police suddenly arrived, clearing the scene without saying a word, and immediately arrested Jo Yeon-ju. Mina, struck on the head, fell into a coma. The thugs also adjusted their statements, alleging that the prosecutor had previously accepted bribes from them. Consequently, Jo Yeon-ju found herself in a dire situation. At the same time, the prosecutor arrived at the police station with a document about Jo Yeon-ju's dismissal. Despite the prosecutor's gloating, Jo Yeon-ju stood her ground, tore up the document, and began berating the prosecutor. At this moment, Han family's eldest sister was quite pleased, having not only managed to imprison Jo Yeon-ju's father but also ensured the prosecutor was captured. However, her satisfaction was short-lived when the prosecutor informed her that, due to Mina's intervention, the charges against Jo Yeon-ju were dropped, and Jo Yeon-ju had to be released. Han family's eldest sister was completely unfazed because she had already devised a plan. She summoned the uncle who was close to Jo Yeon-ju and blackmailed him to call Jo Yeon-ju. Under Han family's eldest sister's pressure, the uncle chose to comply. The uncle then called Jo Yeon-ju, saying he had something important to discuss. Jo Yeon-ju was puzzled by the uncle's strange behavior and gradually felt her consciousness fading. When she woke up again, she found herself bound and facing Han family's eldest sister. Han family's eldest sister calmly recounted her crimes and instructed her to turn herself in. The eldest sister smirked, admitting her guilt but claiming that there was no evidence to implicate her. At this, the prosecutor suddenly smiled. She had intentionally allowed Han family's eldest sister to capture her and to confess her crimes out loud, all as part of her plan. A few days prior, Jo Yeon-ju had instructed her team leader to pretend to align with Han family's eldest sister and to hand over all the evidence of her crimes to show sincerity. Jo Yeon-ju had informed them that the warehouse was filled with numerous surveillance cameras. Now, our conversation is being broadcast live, and everyone knows about the eldest sister's heinous acts. With the evidence in hand, she has nowhere to hide. Seeing that the situation was exposed, she chose to flee. The elder cousin arrived at the warehouse in time to apprehend her. The prosecutor, watching the live broadcast, realized that her crimes had also been exposed. He immediately called his wife, urging her to take the money and run, and sought help from senior members of the prosecutor's office. However, his calls were directly hung up. With the situation falling apart, he had no chance of turning things around. At the same time, the subordinate who had been protecting her suddenly changed his standpoint and admitted that everything had been directed by the eldest daughter. The eldest sister was still planning to flee abroad, but how could Jo Yeon-ju let her escape? In the end, they were arrested by the police on the spot. The once glorious family was all dismissed and reduced to doing menial jobs like shoveling coal. The person who fully took over the company ended up going abroad to become a teacher. Unexpectedly, Jo Yeon-ju followed him. After going through many trials and developing mutual affection, the two finally ended up together. Thanks for watching. Please, like and drop a heart to encourage us. Thanks.